Have you ever had a moment where you looked at your life and thought, I'm just not enough, not successful enough, not attractive enough, not smart enough, not talented enough, not disciplined enough, not interesting enough, not confident enough? And the strange thing is, sometimes you can't even explain where that feeling came from. Nothing necessarily happened that day. Nobody directly told you that you weren't good enough. You just woke up with this feeling that somehow everyone else is moving forward while you're standing still. You open social media and see someone your age doing something incredible, and suddenly everything you've accomplished feels insignificant. You see someone with thousands of followers and wonder why nobody cares about what you're doing. You see someone who seems confident and wonder why you can't be like that. You see someone who's incredibly good at a skill you've been trying to learn and immediately question whether you'll ever reach their level. And before you even realize what's happening, you're no longer looking at someone else's life for inspiration. You're using their life as evidence against yourself. That's where the feeling of never being enough begins. The problem isn't necessarily that you're failing. The problem is that you've created a standard for yourself that keeps moving every time you get close to it. You accomplish something, and instead of enjoying it, you immediately think about the next thing you haven't accomplished. You get a good grade, but then you worry about the next test. You reach a goal at the gym, but instead of appreciating how far you've come, you start comparing yourself to someone stronger. You finally make a video you're proud of, but then you look at the views and decide it wasn't good enough. You improve at something you've been practicing for months, but your brain immediately finds someone who's better and tells you that your progress doesn't count. It's like you're constantly moving the finish line. And if the finish line keeps moving, you're going to spend your entire life running toward a destination you never actually reach. Think about how strange that is. Imagine telling a child, you can be proud of yourself, but only after you've accomplished everything. Nobody would expect that. We understand that children need time to learn. We understand that they're going to make mistakes. We understand that they're going to be bad at things before they become good at them. But somewhere along the way, we stop giving ourselves that same patience. We expect ourselves to already be confident, already be successful, already know what we're doing, already have our future figured out. And when we don't, we assume there's something wrong with us. But there isn't. You're learning, you're growing, you're experiencing things for the first time. You're going to be bad at some things, you're going to make embarrassing mistakes, you're going to change your mind, you're going to have periods where you feel completely lost. None of that means you're broken, it means you're human. One of the biggest reasons people feel like they're never enough is because they compare their reality to other people's highlights. You see the finished product but rarely see the process. You see the successful YouTuber but not the hundreds of videos nobody watched. You see the athlete who looks incredibly strong but not the years of training that came before that moment. You see the person who seems socially confident but not the conversations they were once terrified to have. You see someone's best photograph, best achievement, best moment, and compare it to yourself on an ordinary Tuesday when you're tired and frustrated. That's not a fair comparison. You're comparing someone's carefully selected highlights to your entire life. And social media makes this even worse because it gives you access to thousands of people's best moments every single day. Your brain wasn't designed to constantly compare itself to hundreds or thousands of people, yet that's exactly what happens. You scroll for 10 minutes and suddenly you've seen someone richer than you, someone more successful than you, someone more attractive than you, someone more talented than you, someone traveling somewhere you've never been, someone living the life you wish you had. And eventually you start thinking, what's wrong with me? But nothing is necessarily wrong with you. You're simply looking at an endless stream of comparisons. And the more you compare, the harder it becomes to appreciate your own life. There's another reason this feeling becomes so powerful. You start believing that achievement will finally make you feel worthy. You tell yourself, once I reach this goal, I'll finally be happy with myself. Maybe it's getting a certain number of subscribers. Maybe it's reaching a certain level of strength. Maybe it's becoming better at a skill. Maybe it's getting into a certain school or becoming financially successful. You imagine that there's going to be a moment where you finally arrive and all of your insecurity disappears. But then you reach the goal and something strange happens. You feel proud for a little while and then your brain immediately creates another goal. Suddenly the number that used to seem impossible isn't impressive anymore. You need more, you need to be better, you need to accomplish something else, and the cycle starts again. This is why achievement alone can't permanently solve the feeling of not being enough. If your self-worth is completely dependent on what you've accomplished, then every failure becomes a threat to your identity. A bad day doesn't just mean you had a bad day. It means you start wondering whether you're a failure. A mistake doesn't just mean you made a mistake. It becomes proof that you're not capable. A low-performing video doesn't just mean the video didn't work. You start thinking you're not talented. That's an incredibly painful way to live because it makes you afraid to try anything where you might fail. And ironically, the fear of not being enough can prevent you from becoming better. You become so afraid of producing something mediocre that you don't produce anything. You become so afraid of being bad at a skill that you never practice. You become so afraid of being judged that you stop putting yourself out there. You become so afraid of failing that you choose comfort instead. And then you look at your life and wonder why you're not progressing. The very belief that you're not enough can become the thing holding you back. Because if you believe you have to be good before you're allowed to start, you'll never start. You have to understand that being a beginner is not an insult. Everyone you admire was once terrible at the thing they're now known for. Every creator had a first video. Every athlete had a first workout. Every musician had a first terrible performance. Every skilled person had a period where they didn't know what they were doing. The difference is that they gave themselves permission to be bad long enough to become good. You don't need to prove that you're talented before you begin. Beginning is how you discover what you're capable of. And maybe you're also comparing yourself to the person you think you should be by now. This one can be even more painful because you're not comparing yourself to another person. You're comparing yourself to an imaginary version of yourself. You think, by this age, I should have accomplished more. I should be more confident, I should have more friends, I should have better habits, I should know what I want to do with my life. But who decided that? Where did those deadlines come from? Why are you assuming that your life has to follow a specific schedule? There is no universal timeline for becoming confident, successful, skilled, or happy. Some people discover what they love early, others take years. Some people become successful as teenagers, others don't find their direction until adulthood. Some people know exactly what they want. Others try 10 different things before finding something that fits. None of those paths automatically make someone better than the others. You're allowed to still be figuring things out. You're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to be uncertain. In fact, that's one of the most normal parts of growing up. Another thing that can make you feel like you're never enough is focusing entirely on what you lack. You start making mental lists of everything you don't have. You don't have enough money. You don't have enough friends. You don't have enough confidence. You don't have enough skills. You don't have enough followers. You don't have enough discipline. And the more you focus on what's missing, the more invisible everything you already have becomes. Think about how many things you currently have that an earlier version of yourself would have been excited about. There are skills you have now that you didn't have years ago. There are experiences you've had that you once dreamed about. There are problems you can handle now that would have overwhelmed your younger self. But because you're focused on the next mountain, you forget to look behind you and see how far you've already climbed. Progress becomes invisible when you're constantly looking forward. Sometimes you need to turn around. Not to live in the past, but to remind yourself that you haven't been standing still this entire time. You've changed, you've learned, you've survived difficult moments. You become better at things without even noticing. And that matters. You don't need to become the best version of yourself overnight. You just need to stop treating your current version like an enemy. You can want to improve without hating who you are right now. That's an incredibly important distinction. Self-improvement isn't supposed to mean waking up every morning disgusted with yourself and trying to become someone else. It's supposed to mean looking at yourself and saying, I care enough about my future to keep growing. You can want to become stronger without believing you're weak as a person. You can want to become more disciplined without calling yourself lazy. You can want to become more confident without believing you're worthless because you're currently insecure. You can want more from your life without convincing yourself that your current life has no value. Those things can exist at the same time. And maybe that's what you need to hear most. You don't have to earn the right to respect yourself. You don't have to wait until you're successful. You don't have to wait until you're confident. You don't have to wait until everyone likes you. You don't have to wait until you accomplish your biggest goal. You're allowed to respect yourself while you're still becoming the person you want to be, because you're going to spend your entire life becoming. There will always be something to improve. There will always be someone better at something. There will always be another goal. If you make happiness dependent on finally becoming enough, you'll spend your entire life waiting for permission to be proud of yourself. So maybe the goal isn't to convince yourself that you're perfect. The goal is to become comfortable knowing that you're imperfect and still worthy of trying. You're going to fail sometimes. You're going to have awkward moments. You're going to make decisions you regret. You're going to have days where you don't feel confident at all. None of those things cancel out your value. They're simply parts of being a person. And the next time that voice in your head tells you that you're not enough, don't immediately believe it. Ask yourself, enough for what? Enough compared to who? According to whose standards? And why does one failure have the power to define your entire identity? You might discover that the standard you've been chasing was never actually yours. Maybe you don't need to become someone completely different. Maybe you just need to stop measuring yourself against everyone else. Because your life isn't supposed to look exactly like somebody else's. Your goals don't have to be identical. Your timeline doesn't have to match. Your definition of success doesn't have to match either. And when you finally stop trying to win a competition that you never agreed to enter, something changes. You have more energy to focus on your own life. You start enjoying your progress instead of immediately dismissing it. You start taking risks because failure doesn't feel like the end of your identity anymore. You start learning because you don't need to be naturally talented. You start creating because you don't need everyone's approval. And slowly, without even realizing it, you begin becoming more confident, not because you suddenly became perfect, but because you stopped demanding perfection from yourself. Maybe you'll still have days where you feel like you're falling behind. Maybe you'll still compare yourself sometimes. That's okay. Changing the way you think doesn't happen overnight, but every time you catch yourself turning someone else's success into evidence that you're failing, you can choose a different thought. Every time you make a mistake and immediately call yourself stupid, you can remind yourself that mistakes are part of learning. Every time you accomplish something and immediately move the goalpost, you can stop for a second and actually appreciate what you did. You don't have to become satisfied with never improving. You just need to learn how to appreciate yourself while you improve. Because there is a huge difference between saying, I have more to work on, and saying, I am not enough. The first statement gives you somewhere to go. The second one makes you believe there is something fundamentally wrong with who you are, and there isn't. You're still learning. You're still growing, you're still discovering what you're capable of. You have more time than you probably realize. Your story isn't finished. You haven't seen what you're capable of 5 years from now, 10 years from now, or even 1 year from now. So don't let the person you are today become trapped by the expectations you have for the person you're supposed to become tomorrow. Give yourself room to grow. Give yourself permission to be inexperienced. Give yourself permission to fail. Give yourself permission to change. And most importantly, give yourself permission to believe that you are already worth something before you accomplish the next thing on your list. You don't need to become enough. You need to realize that you've been enough to deserve the chance to keep becoming. And maybe the hardest part about feeling like you're never enough is that nobody else can really see what's happening inside your head. From the outside, you might look completely normal. You go to school, you talk to people, you laugh at things, you play games, you work on your goals, you post things online, and everyone assumes you're fine. But internally, you're constantly evaluating yourself. You replay conversations and wonder if you sounded stupid. You look at pictures and find things you don't like. You look at your grades and focus on the one score that wasn't good enough. You look at your hobbies and wonder why you're not better. You look at your life and compare it to the life you think you should have. And because all of those thoughts happen privately, nobody realizes how exhausting it can be to constantly feel like you're being graded by your own mind. It's like carrying around a scoreboard that nobody else can see. Every accomplishment gives you a few points, but every mistake takes them away, and somehow you're always convinced you're losing. The worst part is that sometimes you can become so used to criticizing yourself that kindness starts feeling uncomfortable. Someone compliments you and you immediately reject it. Someone tells you that you're talented and you think they're just being nice. Someone says you're doing a good job and your brain immediately finds 10 reasons why they're wrong. You become so accustomed to looking for what's wrong that you don't know how to accept what's right. You don't even realize you're doing it anymore. It's automatic. You hear something positive and your brain searches for the flaw. And after years of doing that, you can start believing that criticism is honesty. You think being hard on yourself is what keeps you improving. You think if you stop criticizing yourself, you'll become lazy or arrogant, but constantly hating your progress doesn't make you more disciplined. It just makes the process of improving miserable. Imagine if you treated a friend the way you treat yourself. Imagine your friend starts a YouTube channel and their first video gets 10 views. They come to you disappointed and say, I think I'm terrible at this. Would you look them in the eyes and say, yeah, you're right, you're not talented enough, you should quit? Of course not. You'd probably tell them that 10 views doesn't determine their future. You'd tell them that they're learning. You'd tell them to make another video. You'd probably encourage them to look at what they can improve instead of attacking themselves. But when it's you, suddenly those rules disappear. You expect yourself to perform perfectly while giving everyone else permission to learn, and that's something you have to recognize. You deserve the same patience you would give someone else who was genuinely trying, because here's something people don't talk about enough. You can be ambitious without being cruel to yourself. You can want more without believing what you currently have is worthless. You can chase difficult goals while still appreciating your life. You can look at yourself honestly and say, there are things I need to improve, without turning that statement into, there's something wrong with me. Those are completely different ways of thinking. One creates growth, the other creates shame. And shame is a terrible fuel source. It might push you for a little while, but eventually it burns you out. If the only reason you're going to the gym is because you hate how you look, eventually the gym starts feeling like punishment. If the only reason you're making YouTube videos is because you think you'll finally be worth something when you're successful, every low-view video becomes emotionally painful. If you're climbing because you need to prove that you're good enough, every failed route feels like a personal failure instead of an opportunity to learn. Your goals become tests of your worth instead of things you're actually excited to pursue. And that's when something you once loved can start becoming something you fear. You stop asking, do I enjoy this? And start asking, am I good enough at this? You stop asking, what can I learn? And start asking, why am I not better already? You stop enjoying the process because you're constantly looking over your shoulder at the imaginary version of yourself that you think you should already be. But that version of you doesn't exist yet, and that's okay. Maybe the person you want to become is supposed to take years. Maybe becoming confident is going to take hundreds of uncomfortable conversations. Maybe becoming skilled at something is going to take thousands of hours. Maybe building the channel you imagine is going to take dozens or hundreds of videos. Maybe becoming stronger is going to take years of consistent training. Maybe becoming a great climber is going to require falling off routes over and over again. That's not evidence that you're failing. That's the price of becoming good. We live in a culture that constantly shows us the finished product. We see the successful creator, not the beginner. We see the athlete, not the first day. We see the incredible artist, not the terrible sketches they made when they started. We see the confident person walking into a room, not the years they spent being nervous. Because of that, we develop this strange expectation that our own journey should somehow skip the difficult parts. We want the confidence without the uncomfortable experiences that create it. We want the strength without the training. We want the skill without the mistakes. We want the success without the period where nobody believes in us. But you can't skip the middle. The middle is where you become the person capable of handling the destination. And sometimes the reason you feel like you're not enough is because you're trying to evaluate yourself before you've finished developing. You're judging a work in progress as if it were supposed to be the final product, but you're not a finished product, you're a person. You're going to change more times than you can predict. Your interests will change, your goals will change, your friendships will change, your personality will develop, your priorities will change. You might completely change your mind about what you want your life to look like. And years from now, you may look back at the person you are today and barely recognize them. So why are you demanding that this version of yourself already have everything figured out? You don't need to, you just need to keep moving. And moving doesn't always mean achieving something massive. Sometimes moving forward means getting enough sleep so you can function better tomorrow. Sometimes it means putting your phone down and giving your brain a break. Sometimes it means admitting you don't know something and learning it. Sometimes it means apologizing when you were wrong. Sometimes it means trying something you might fail at. Sometimes it means walking away from a comparison that is making you miserable. Growth isn't always impressive. Sometimes growth looks incredibly ordinary, and that's another trap we fall into. We think our progress only counts when it's visible to other people. If nobody knows about it, we don't consider it an achievement. But some of the most important progress you'll ever make will happen when nobody is watching. Nobody sees you choosing to practice instead of procrastinate. Nobody sees you getting back up after a bad day. Nobody sees you resisting the urge to compare yourself. Nobody sees the moment you decide not to insult yourself over a mistake, but those moments matter. In fact, they might matter more than the moments people actually see. Because eventually, those tiny decisions become your identity. You become someone who keeps promises to yourself. You become someone who can fail without completely falling apart. You become someone who can receive criticism without believing you're worthless. You become someone who can succeed without needing everyone to validate it. And that's a much stronger form of confidence than simply believing you're better than everyone else. Real confidence isn't walking into a room thinking you're the best person there. It's walking into a room knowing that even if you're not the best person there, you're still okay. You can survive being inexperienced. You can survive being awkward. You can survive someone not liking you. You can survive making a mistake. You can survive not being the best. And once you understand that, you stop needing perfection to feel safe. That's when you become free to actually try things, because when failure no longer means I'm worthless, failure becomes information. You can experiment, you can create, you can compete, you can start conversations, you can upload the video, you can walk into the gym, you can try the climbing route. You can pursue the thing you've been afraid to pursue because you're no longer asking yourself to guarantee success before you begin. And maybe that's what you need to change, not your entire personality, not your entire life, just the way you interpret your mistakes. Instead of saying, I failed so I'm not enough, try saying, I failed so now I know something I didn't know before. Instead of saying, everyone is ahead of me, say, they're on their path and I'm on mine. Instead of saying, I should be better by now, say, I'm still learning. Instead of saying, I'll finally be enough when I achieve this, say, I can pursue this goal because I care about it, not because I need it to prove my worth. Those small changes in the way you talk to yourself can completely change the way you experience your life. Because at the end of the day, you're going to spend more time with yourself than anyone else ever will. So imagine what would happen if the voice in your own head stopped being your biggest enemy. Imagine waking up and not immediately searching for what's wrong with yourself. Imagine accomplishing something and actually letting yourself be proud of it. Imagine failing and thinking, okay, I'll learn from this, instead of I'm terrible. Imagine seeing someone more successful than you and feeling inspired instead of threatened. Imagine looking at your future and thinking, I don't know exactly where I'm going, but I'm excited to find out. That doesn't mean you'll never feel insecure again. You will, everyone does, but insecurity doesn't have to control every decision you make. You don't need to eliminate every negative thought. You just need to stop treating every negative thought like a fact. Because your mind can tell you that you're behind, it can tell you that you're unattractive, it can tell you that you're not talented, it can tell you that nobody cares, it can tell you that you're not enough. But a thought isn't a verdict, it's just a thought. And sometimes the most important thing you can do is pause before believing it. Ask yourself whether it's actually true. Ask yourself whether you're judging yourself by a standard you would never use on another person. Ask yourself whether you're looking at the entire picture or just the one thing that went wrong. And if you discover that you've been unfair to yourself, give yourself permission to change the story. You don't have to spend the rest of your life trying to earn your own approval. You can start giving some of it to yourself now. Maybe the biggest thing I want you to take away from this is that you don't have to spend your entire life chasing the feeling of finally being enough. Because if you do, there will always be another goal, another person to compare yourself to, another number to reach, another thing to fix, another reason to tell yourself that you're still not there yet. You could spend years becoming more successful and still feel like a failure if you've trained your mind to only notice what's missing. You could build the YouTube channel you always wanted and still look at someone bigger and feel insignificant. You could become stronger, learn new skills, accomplish goals you once thought were impossible, and still find another reason to criticize yourself. That's why this isn't really about becoming better. It's about learning how to recognize your progress while you're becoming better. It's about understanding that ambition and self-respect can exist at the same time. You can look at yourself honestly and know that you have things to improve without believing that those imperfections make you less valuable. You can want to change your life without hating the life you're living right now. You can have goals without turning those goals into a measurement of your worth.